Welcome back to another episode after week 3 of the NFL season. Pretty good week. I thought there were some really interesting games this week. A couple games I told you to look out for, and I thought that those games definitely played out to the way that I kind of thought that they would, or at least in terms of excitement and stuff happening at the end of those games. Maybe not predicting those games correctly, as when I get into my 5 picks of the week, didn't have a great week. Went 2-3. So, I mean, not terrible, but, I was really looking for an over 500 week, especially after week 2 where I went 1-4. But we went 2-3. Again, not bad. Still early. Overall record for the picks is 6-9. So, again, under 500 there. But I think, there's still a lot of time left. There's still, it's been week 3, so we still have another, 14 more weeks, 15 more weeks, whatever it is. So, a lot of time to get back over 500. But I think we'll start with the picks. We'll go over them. We can kind of talk about the games a little bit there, and then I'll dive into some games that had really good finishes or just a really good game, really good matchup, just some storylines that I saw from it. But like I said, we'll start with the picks. First pick was Bengals Jets -6 Cincinnati. I said that was my most confident game of the week, and that turned out to be, for all of Sunday, that was my only correct pick. The Bengals did win 27-12. There was no way they were going to start 0-3, and I know the -6 technically doesn't mean that they have to lose if they don't get -6. They could obviously win the game by 1 to 5 points and still not cover it and not get the win for the pick, but it was a Jets team coming off. Again, they probably should have lost that week 2 game against the Browns. They got super lucky, to be honest. You have to give them credit, no doubt, because they did make the plays that they needed to make in order to win that game. But with 1 minute 50 seconds left and a 2-touchdown lead, you're thinking that the Browns will win that game. But them coming off that emotional ride, Bengals losing the first 2 games after obviously going to the Super Bowl last year. Offense hasn't looked great. They obviously the pressure on Burrow has been immense, just in terms of him getting hit, the sacks, the pressures, the hurries, everything. So something had to give, and usually the better team comes out in the better in those matchups. So it made sense to go Bengals in this one. It's really, I guess at first it was close. It was 7-6 still in the first quarter, but then after that, the Bengals did get it all the way up to 20-6. And then it was kind of just controlling the game at that point. Then they got a late touchdown to Ja'Marr Chase to make it 27-9, and obviously it was over at that point. So yeah, it made sense to go with Bengals there. I think Burrow only got hit. I think he only got sacked. Let's see, he got sacked. Looks like 2 times, I believe. Yeah, 2 times. I mean, the first 2 games he got sacked 15 times. So that's a huge improvement right there. The QBR wasn't great for Burrow, despite him having a pretty solid game, probably his best overall game. He went 275, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The QBR is only 58 though, so not that means that much, but it's still kind of a little bit telling maybe about the offense. They had one big play to Tyler Boyd where it was kind of just like a slant route that he just made a great play on, and it turned out to be, I think it was like a 50-yard touchdown. Yeah, 56-yard touchdown. So definitely had help from the offense. But, when you have playmakers like that, like in T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Mixon, those guys are going to have to step up a lot more. I mean, Ja'Marr Chase really hasn't done much this year. And again, is that a product of the offensive line not playing well? So Burrow doesn't have enough time in the pocket to get the ball down deep. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, but even still, someone like Ja'Marr Chase, who had 1,400 receiving yards last year, as long as he gets the ball, he should be able to make plays. T. Higgins is a great number 2 wide receiver. Mixon's a really good running back. I mean, he was kind of bottled up in this game. I think he had like 24 yards or something like that, but didn't really need it. Again, they had this game kind of controlled from the jump. And yeah, that was my one solo win on Sunday. My other games, Raiders, Titans. I took Raiders -1.5. I felt confident in this one. The Titans got blown out week 2. The secondary got torched. The Raiders starting off 0-2, so these are 2 teams that are 0-2, so they desperately need a win. But the Raiders being 0-2 after choking away that game against the Cardinals. Again, I kind of just thought The Titans aren't that good of a team. I think that they can expose their secondary. Las Vegas can with Carr and Adams and Waller. I thought that they could really do something against them, and it just the Titans never even trailed in this game. So I don't know what's going on with Vegas. They're 0-3 now. I said they were the third best team in the AFC West. I kind of still do believe that, even though they're technically last in the division. I still believe they are the third best team. Denver has looked despite Denver being 2-1, they've looked awful in these first 3 weeks of the season. And I'll touch on their game from Sunday night, but Las Vegas, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, Carr hasn't been like terrible, but he also hasn't been great. They're not really getting Davante Adams the ball that much. The defense hasn't really stepped up the way that they were probably hoping that it would. Chandler Jones, like I said last week, still hasn't done anything. You keep banking on Chandler Jones to do something, get sacks, do something positive on defense. It's just not going to be the case every single week. Like I said, I already documented this, but the defense needs to step up for them, and really the offense just has to be more consistent. It seems like at the end of games, if they're losing, they can go down and drive. I mean, you see the last 3 scores were by them, 2 field goals and a touchdown, but they've also been struggling in the red zone, a 32-yard field goal and a 35-yard field goal. That means you're in the red zone and you can't convert, so they're definitely struggling with close down situations, red zone situations. I think part of that is running the ball. They have Josh Jacobs, who's definitely a solid running back, but I don't know if it's just he just hasn't been able to get yards. The offensive line just hasn't been able to really been great in the run, or what it exactly is that just the dynamic of the run and pass just really hasn't worked for them so far. Again, passing the ball with Carr and Adams and Waller and Renfro and Matt Collins is even making contributions for them. They'll be fine passing the ball. They just need to be a little bit more consistent. I think Carr needs to be better with his reads and his options. I saw some game film yesterday from the Titans game. I think it was like 3 plays in that game where Davante Adams is open, and he's just not even looking his way. So I think that that's something that has to be fixed. You bring in, again, arguably the best wide receiver in football, and you're not even targeting him. You're not even really looking at him that much. There's no reason for him to, in his last 2 games, to get, in this game he went 5 for 36. The game before he went 2 for 12. There's no reason for him to go 2 straight games having subpar games, even though he had touchdowns in both. Those are bad games for Davante Adams. And again, it's not even really like his fault, to be honest. He's not getting targeted that much. I mean, he had 10 targets in this past game, but a guy like Davante Adams, where you're losing the entire game, that means you're passing, a majority of the time, at least like 70% of the time, if not more. He needs to be getting 15 plus targets. And again, a Titans secondary that's really bad, who just got absolutely obliterated last Monday night against the Bills. There's really no reason not to get him the ball more. So they have problems to fix. Like I said, I don't know if I ever said the final score, but it's 24-22 in this one. The Titans won. So they were still kind of close. They did get a touchdown at the end. They had a 2-point conversion to send it to overtime. That's what I was hoping for, because if you're guaranteed, if they were to win in overtime, you're guaranteed to get that -1.5. They didn't convert on the 2-point. Again, they really didn't deserve to win this game. They did not play a good game. So yeah, they're 0-3. Titans are 1-2. So that was my first loss. Saints, Panthers. I had -2.5 New Orleans. The Saints are just, I don't know what's really going on with them. This game was over in the first half, to be honest. It was 13-0 going into the second half. The Saints didn't score until 12 minutes and 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter. They got a touchdown to make it 13-7. And then the Panthers got a touchdown, another field goal, and then obviously the game was over. I don't know what's going on with the Saints offense. Winston, he's playing with multiple back fractures and all these injuries, so maybe they should just rest him and, let him some time to heal, to get back to being healthy and normal and being able to function in an offense, because you have Kamara, you have Thomas, you have Olave, you have Landry, you have Ingram. There's really no reason not to be productive on offense. They always have good offensive line. I know they may have an injury or two, but they still always have a solid offensive line. So I think it's just the quarterback, and he's definitely not healthy. So it's not like he's just not playing well, but he's totally healthy. He's just playing really bad. he is injured and he does sound pretty serious. But at the same time, I think that he may need to just stop trying to toughen it out, like kind of take one for the team and just sit a game out. I know they have Andy Dalton as their backup. That's a solid backup to have. I think he can run an offense with these type of playmakers. You just lean heavy on Kamara and Thomas. And I know Thomas actually didn't practice today. I'm recording this on Wednesday, so he might not even play next week. I don't know, but they do play in London. They're the London game against the Vikings, so that's you're traveling all the way to London, different time zone, different stuff's going on. You don't have everything that you need if you're at your home facility as well. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do. I'll be interested to see what happens on Sunday morning. I think the game's at 9:30 actually Sunday morning. So that will be a big game for them coming up. Is they're 1-2 right now, and to be honest, like they look like a 5-win team right now. I know that's probably not the case because the defense is good enough to stop teams and hold teams. It's hard when your offense isn't scoring until the fourth quarter to try and win games. I mean, you can't blame the defense for that, but I definitely want to see what happens with them going forward because, a lot of people had them winning this division, which I think is still possible. I think if they can just right the ship over these next couple of weeks, I think they could win this division. It will be tough considering they already lost to Tampa head-to-head, but Tampa's offense looks terrible, and I know they're missing guys, but even still, week one, they had all their guys, and they still looked really bad. They just were lucky that the Cowboys only scored 3 points, but I think that they definitely can still win this division, but they need to change it. Something needs to change this week. In week 4, the Saints play, like I said, the Vikings. Then they play the Seahawks. So if you can get a win in London, then you have an easier opponent in Seattle coming up. That could be huge. That could be 2 wins right there. You're 3-2. We'll see what the Bucs do in their next 2 games, but they really need to start winning games right now. And I think the Vikings are definitely a tough test, no doubt about it, but they're beatable. You could beat the Vikings. They probably should have lost last week to the Lions. So they're definitely beatable, and I think they probably can beat them. But the offense needs to do something. There's too many playmakers on that team on offense to not score points until the fourth quarter. I mean, not even a field goal. I mean, think about how crazy that is. You can't even get into field goal range and make a field goal and get at least something, just points on the board until the fourth quarter of a game. Against the Panthers, too. The Panthers aren't a good team, so that's concerning, but that was my second loss right there. So I'm 1-2. Jaguars, Chargers. I had -7 Chargers. At one point it didn't even seem like Justin Herbert was going to play. Then they said he was active, but it didn't matter at all if he played. If he didn't play, it didn't matter. They lost 38-10. They got blown out. And to be honest, I probably shouldn't have taken this because they did have injuries, coming into that game. They lost guys in that game. Rashawn Slater's now out for the season. Joey Bosa's out multiple weeks. So, they're missing a lot of guys. They have a lot of injuries on that team. And, going forward, I'm still confident that they can win this division, but it's going to be tough. You're missing your star left tackle for the season now. And their backup, they're probably going to have to make a trade or sign someone because their backup, Storm Norton, he's terrible. He played last year a couple times and just spot starts or just filling in for guys in the game. He's terrible. So if he's going to be your left tackle with Herbert, who already has a broken rib cage and is in serious pain, and he's going to be for the next couple weeks, you need to do something on that left side because he's going to get killed. And that means Herbert's going to get killed. So I know Keenan Allen's going to play this week, or at least it seems like he's going to play this week coming up. So I guess that's big news as well. But they just have a lot of problems on that team right now. They kind of need a spark to them because they're lucky the Chiefs lost this week, and I'll talk about that game as well. They're lucky they lost because the Chiefs could have been 3-0 and the Chargers would have been 1-2 already with a loss to them head to head. That would not have been good for them trying to win this division because, like I said, those injuries they're starting to mount up for them. And with Herbert, playing through an injury, we'll see how productive he is. We'll see how good he is. And again, without Slater, they're gonna get beat on that offensive line. But I think the story in this one, and that is a big story with the Chargers. There's some concern, at least for the division. We'll see about a wild card spot. Let's see how they can kind of get back on track next week. But I think the bigger story is the Jaguars. And, I said it, I've been saying it throughout, early before the season and, the last couple weeks. The Jaguars they're a solid team. They're not going to be one of the worst teams in the AFC. Now, are they a playoff team? I don't think so. I mean, maybe, if Lawrence, he's played really well so far. If he can continue to do that, because the defense is pretty solid. They have players on there. They have Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick. They have guys on that defense who can make plays. Maybe against a really high-powered offense, it would look a little different. But I think that defense can kind of hang in with teams and at least give the offense a chance. And the offense has been great. I said last year, the offseason before they hired a coach, I said they had to hire a veteran coach who knew what he was doing, could stabilize that franchise, and make Trevor Lawrence the franchise quarterback that he should be. And that, I think Doug Peterson was that perfect guy. You needed someone like that. Everyone was saying after the Urban Meyer experience, go with another young guy, try to get one of these young coordinators who can, a Sean McVay type. I don't think that's the solution for this team. I think this team, and really more so this organization, needed a veteran coach who just knew what he was doing. So you have a Super Bowl winning coach in your building now who could bring all of his assistants in, all of his personnel guys. He knows how to run a franchise. He knows how to take a team, in Philadelphia that had all these expectations and couldn't really do anything, had this quarterback that they just took number 2 overall and can lead them to a Super Bowl and lead this to being a really good team. I think that's a really good coach. Now, will he be able to do the same exact thing in Jacksonville and lead them to a Super Bowl? I'm not sure about that. Obviously, there's a lot more changes that need to be made and more players need to be brought in. And there's going to be probably 2 or 3 years until we possibly get to that point. But in terms of this year, 2022, there's no reason for them not to be fighting for a playoff spot. I mean, it's a really tough AFC, but they're in the weakest division in probably football. So they have for sure have a chance. And the fact that they already beat the Colts, you could argue that they're maybe even might be on the same playing level as Tennessee. They're obviously better than the Texans. So there's really no reason for them not to be pretty good in the division. Maybe get 6-7 wins, and who knows, maybe even 8-9 wins if they can kind of, beating a Chargers. You're probably going into that game this season before the season started saying that's a loss. The Colts game, you're probably saying, yeah, we might be able to win, but also at the same time, they're probably better than us. So that's probably 60-40 Indianapolis, but you win that game. So they can get a couple more upsets and kind of beat the teams they need to, really more so in their division. There's no reason that they can't be fighting for a playoff spot. I think, like I said, Peterson was just the perfect guy for this team. Any other veteran coach would have been good, but I think Peterson really was that perfect fit for them. And we're seeing it with Lawrence. He's really turning into that franchise quarterback that obviously you expected when you draft him number 1 overall, and all the hype and the scouts and everything go from college, from high school to college to the NFL was that he's going to be the next guy in the league. And I think we're really seeing that jump. He's gonna. I think by the end of this season, he's going to be in that conversation for that that top 12, top 10 quarterback. That's where he's going to be. I really do see that happening. So it's just great news for Jacksonville. They've obviously been so bad for how many years. Obviously, they had the 1 year where they went to the AFC Championship, but, every single player off that team's gone, and that was only a couple years ago. But I like this new era. I think the offense is really solid. James Robinson has looked great since the torn Achilles last year. It's crazy that he's playing 9 months later, and he took that starting spot from Travis Etienne. I mean, that was his spot going into this year, and James Robinson absolutely took that from him. But you still have Etienne there, so you have 2 really solid running backs. You have Kirk on the outside, Marvin Jones, a veteran wide receiver to have. Evan Ingram, despite all of his failures in New York, he's still a solid player if he can just, kind of concentrate and focus on what he has to do. So I like that team. I do, I think there are for sure worse teams in the AFC. I think the Jets are worse than them. I personally think the Patriots are worse than them. I think the Texans are worse than them. Like I said, I think the Titans may even be on the same level as them. I would probably still lean Titans because of the experience, the coaching. They were the number 1 seed last year. It's hard to go against them just in a year's time. But at the same time though, they've gotten worse, and Jacksonville has gotten better. But yeah, that's gonna be really interesting to see what happens at the end of the year. Like I said, I think 6 wins is the floor, and I think I'd be surprised if they got to 9, but I would say 7 to 8 wins is probably where they should be. I think that's a really solid year. If they go 7-10, I think that's a really solid year. And then next year, you're looking to be over 500 with some more free agent acquisitions, draft guys, maybe even making a trade for like a star wide receiver. That's always a possibility. But that was my third loss, and then for my last win, it was Cowboys Giants. It was +1 Dallas. I mean, that seems so easy to me. The Cowboys are the better team. Like I said, I was at this game. I'll go more into it in my Cowboys video, so make sure to check that out. It'll be out in a couple days from when this video is posted. But just quickly, I'll just kind of just talk about it a little bit. The Cowboys were the better team. As long as the offense could put up enough points to win this game, they were going to win. They held the Giants to 16 points, and from the third quarter on, they didn't even allow any points. It was just as long as the offense was able to muster up points. And you know what? They probably should have won by more. Lamb had a big drop that would have been a touchdown or at least inside the 5-yard line. There was a pass interference in the end zone that they didn't call that would have put it first and goal at the 1. So that probably would have been a touchdown instead of a field goal on that drive. So, definitely more opportunities for points. But they still won 23-16. So obviously they cover. And it was no problem. From the 5:31 mark on, from the third quarter and the 5:31 mark, the Giants, I guess they got a late field goal with 3:37 left. But, that was really all it was. So, like I said, I'll talk about that more, in my Cowboys video. But, so that was me going 2-3 this week. Those are the 5 picks I had. The one I felt most confident in did hit, so I guess I can kind of get maybe a bonus point for that, but that's not really how it works. But some other week 3 games that I just wanted to touch on. I think Chiefs-Colts, as I mentioned, Colts win 2017. This was a bad game for the Chiefs. This was a very winnable game. I mean, they were favored by like 5.5 points on the road in Indianapolis. And like I said, with the Chargers then losing in the 4 o'clock window, obviously this game was at the 1 o'clock window, but this was a huge opportunity for them to take a 2.5 game lead because obviously they'd be 3-0, Chargers would be 1-2. The Chiefs already beat them head to head. Huge opportunity to get a big lead in that division. And they really fumbled, to be honest. I mean, to only score 17 points, and the last points they scored was with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. That's concerning, considering the Colts' defense is for sure good, but they still don't have Darius Leonard, and he's obviously the biggest part of that defense. And they still had they were kind of moving the ball, but it's just I don't know. It was just a bad loss. That's a game you really can't lose. Even though you're on the road and you're still playing a solid team, I think they've obviously underperformed these first 2 weeks, and they got shut out last week against Jacksonville. But to lose that game with so many opportunities that they had to kind of score and kind of seem like put them away, or at least be comfortable in your lead for the rest of that game, you can't lose that game if you're the Chiefs. And if you're the Colts, I mean that's a great win. You needed that because you cannot start 0-2-1 to this season with the kind of roster that you have, and to at least be 1-1-1 in that division, you're giving yourself a chance if you can just get everything back on track in terms of your offense, and when Leonard comes back, your defense will be better. So I do have confidence that they'll be better, but in terms of just right now, there are some other teams in that division. Like I said, Jacksonville, Tennessee is still there despite not looking great these first couple of weeks. They're still there. So it was a big win for the Colts to at least get better. Because if they would have been 0-2-1, there would have been a lot of questions being thrown around in Indy about the coach. You bring in Matt Ryan. This is like our 4th quarterback in 4 years, and we're 0-2-1, and a tie to the Texans, a shutout loss to the Jaguars. It's not a great start to being a quarterback now for the Colts. But like I said, they do get the win, and that was a big win for them. Next game, Bills-Dolphins. I was talking about this game in the last video and what to watch for this week. And it didn't live up to the hype in terms of like high-scoring affair, just shootout. But it was a great game in terms of just who could make the big play at the end of the game. And it seemed like the Bills probably should have won this game. They did outplay the Dolphins, but That heat in Miami, it was 100 degrees there. Everyone on the Bills was coming out with cramps or dehydration. I mean, Stephon Diggs probably came out like 4 times to get water and get IVs. There were so many guys going down for the Bills, even some for the Dolphins, but obviously they're used to that weather. They play in it, half the time of the year, and they practice in it, so they're more used to it than, especially the Bills. Like maybe if it was another Southern team, it was maybe a little different, but obviously the Bills, even though it's still kind of summer and fall, whatever, it still is warm in Buffalo. It's obviously colder in Buffalo than it is in Miami, and especially when they've been playing there for a couple of years. You play in snow, you play in the winter. You're just not used to playing in 100-degree weather for a full game like that, and especially a game like this where it was back and forth, and the offense was on the field a lot for the Bills. I think they ran, I'm not exactly sure how many plays it was. I think it was the Bills ran 90 plays. I mean, that's a lot of plays to run as an offense. So that's why so many guys were going down, because you're on the field for so long. I mean, the Dolphins only ran 40. So think about it. And they scored 21 points, the Dolphins did, in 40 plays, and in 90 plays, the Bills scored 19 points. So, if you watch that game, the Bills probably should have won. They did outplay them. But, yeah, the Dolphins came through. I mean, Tua looked like he got concussed, and then somehow he was back in the game. He led them, to that last drive. He made it 21-17 on a touchdown with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He played a really good game again, solid game. And again, he looked good after coming back from the locker room. I was, again, still surprised that he even came back in, but he was able to, play. He looked normal. For them to be 3-0, beat the Bills already, I still think the Bills are the better team, and they will be at the end of the season. But in terms of right now, to be, to already have a win over them, and be technically a game and a half up in the division, yeah, that's pretty big. I mean, we'll see what the Dolphins' schedule looks like after this, but they play the Bengals in that's this Thursday night, which will be a really good game as well. That's a game to look forward to if for this week. That's gonna be a really good game. So that's for sure a tough matchup. But then you have the Jets, Vikings at home. That's not the toughest matchup. Steelers at home, at the Lions, at the Bears. These aren't really tough games. I mean, as long as they play the way that they've been playing with, a fast, explosive offense, and the defense kind of forcing turnovers and making key stops when they have to, you could win these games, and you could get up to 10, 11, maybe even 12 wins if Tua can just play consistent like he's been playing, which in a Mike McDaniel's offense, it should be pretty, easy. He's going to make the game easier for you. They're not even like a running team, to be honest. They really don't use the running backs. It's more so, quick passes, getting the ball to Hill and Waddle. If Tua needs to make a play, he can make a play. But I really like the offense at the running. And again, when Mike McDaniel comes into that, they're going to have at least an effective offense. And that's what they have so far. And I guess the last thing I want to say on this game is the last play of the game, last drive. The Bills are they come down the field. They get, Allen gets a pass to Isaiah McKenzie for 12 yards, and they have no timeouts. Let's see how many seconds. There was 18 seconds left when that play happened. He's trying to fight for extra yards. Again, they only need a field goal to win the game. That got them to the Miami 41-yard line. So obviously it would have been a long field goal. It was at 58 yards, but it's for sure kickable and doable. You can definitely make that. And they went to try and clock the ball, and they got it. They clocked it with -1 second left. So obviously they didn't get it in time. So it would have been interesting to see. It would have been really it would have been heightened. Kind of the fear of being a Dolphins fan right there. And the excitement of that game. But they didn't get it in time. They lose. Like I said, if you looked at after that game, I mean, there was probably 6 people just lying on the ground because they were just like dead. I mean, they couldn't even move. So yeah, that was one of the crazier games of the week for sure, and we knew it was going to be, but it definitely lived up to that in terms of what happened at the end of that game and the heightened excitement of it. The next game I want to talk about, though, I'll touch on the Packers-Bucks game. This game was really boring, to be honest, and I kind of thought it would be. I think I can't exactly remember who I picked. I know I talked about it in the last episode. I can't exactly remember who I picked would win this game, but Packers did win 14-12. I think I did say Packers because of the running game, even though the running game really didn't do much for them. That wasn't really a big factor in the game. They got 2 early touchdowns, the Packers did, and then didn't score the rest of the game. The Bucs had a chance to tie this game and send it to OT. They got a touchdown with 14 seconds left on a really good drive from Brady, to be honest, but the 2-point conversion failed. So the Packers did win 14-12. Again, ugly game. Bucs offense was doing nothing the entire game. They got an early field goal, and then they didn't score again until the 6:22 mark in the third quarter, and then obviously that late touchdown. So that's that's when I was talking about the Saints. I was like, you still have a chance in this division because the Bucs offense, and again, Mike Evans didn't play, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, but they just don't look good. They don't. The offensive line is so beaten up and so on backups and depth that you can get to Brady. You can make life more difficult for that offense, even when those receivers are back. When they are back, I'll be interested to see what does happen with the offense. But this isn't the same offense as last year where they're going to be putting up 30 every game. Brady's throwing for 45 touchdowns and 4,500 yards. It's not that same offense. They really have to rely on the running game and quick passes and just, their playmakers making plays when they are back. The defense is still, top 5, top 7, whatever you want to say it is. But, again, a defense can only do so much until the offense. If the offense isn't scoring, then the defense, it's hard for them to keep making stops. And you give credit to the Bucs defense. They were making stops in this game. They did pick off Rodgers once. They were making key stops when they had to. But yeah, it's just not going to be enough if the offense isn't scoring more than 12 points a game, which is kind of, they scored, 19 week 1, 20 week 2, and 12 week 3. You can't win a lot of games like that. And the fact they're 2-1 and, potentially even could have been 3-0 if they send that game to OT, and who knows what happens. But it's kind of crazy, but it's a real, testament to how good their defense is and how pretty poor their offense has been. But for the Packers, big win. Again, they got blown out week 1. Pretty easy game in the Bears week 2, but they handled them, and then they win this kind of ugly game, 14-12. So they are 2-1. They are top of that division. I guess technically the Bears are 2-1, but obviously they beat them head to head. So they are ahead in that division. And they should win this division. It's an easy division. They should be able to beat the Bears twice. The Lions, they should be able to beat them twice. Maybe they might lose to them once. The Lions are kind of, they can score points. The only problem is that they let up points on defense, but they can for sure go toe-to-toe on offense. Then the Vikings, obviously, they already lost to them once, but that was in Minnesota. Come to Green Bay, in the wintertime, could be a little bit different, especially at that point. They kind of have a little bit more of a groove going, I would assume. So, I think Green Bay, they should be able to win that division. Are they the same team as they were the last couple of years in terms of dominance? And, they really are probably, a really true threat. I think they are for sure still a threat in the NFC because it's very wide open, but it's hard right now to say that they're one of the top threats in the NFC because the offense hasn't looked great. I think they're still trying to find their identity because they don't have any receivers, to be honest. Rodgers obviously hasn't looked like Aaron Rodgers yet, but I think that's the way this year is going to go. They're going to rely on Jones and Dillon in the backfield, and it's Rodgers just, when he has to make a play, he'll make a play, but it's for the most part, we're going to run it on first down, we're going to run it on second down, and if we don't get the first down at that point, it's going to be third and short, and Rodgers can make a play. So I think that's the way their offense is going to be, and it's not a bad thing because you have two really talented running backs behind you, so you might as well use them. The last game I'll talk about is the Sunday night game, and I don't even really want to talk about it. It's more just how bad it was. This seemed like a good matchup going in. Niners first start with Jimmy G, a quarterback. They get Kittle back as well. And then Broncos, third week, you're saying, all right, the first 2 weeks were really bad. We are 1-1 though. We're at home again, Sunday Night Football. This is our chance to kind of prove that those first 2 weeks we were just, trying to find ourselves, and we didn't have everything that we wanted. Everyone wasn't on the same page, and this game didn't prove to anyone that they're a real threat in the AFC. I mean, they won 11-10, which is a crazy score to announce, 11-10, but it was one of the worst games we may even see for the season. I don't think there's going to be a game that's going to be worse than this one. In terms of, and not even like, like that Bears Niners game was really bad to see, but they were playing in like a hurricane. Like here it was no weather, nothing like that. It was perfect skies, sunny, and it's not sunny, it was a night game, but just it was a perfect night for a game. And it was 11-10. No offense could move. I mean, there was like 20 plus punts in this game. And again, it's not like these are two bad teams, like with like no playmakers on either side. I mean, the Broncos have Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. The Niners have Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Like, there's no reason that these offenses can't move the ball and score. And the San Francisco is up 7-3 for the majority of the first half, and then third quarter comes, Broncos get a safety, so 7-5. That's why like the 11 score comes into play, was because of the safety. Whole third quarter, no more scoring. Niners get a field goal with 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter, so it's 10-5. And then the Broncos finally put a drive together and get a 1-yard touchdown from Melvin Gordon with 4 minutes left. Niners have a chance. I think they had 2 drives to go down the field and score. Jimmy G gets intercepted after the touchdown drive from the Broncos, where they got to midfield and he got intercepted. Broncos go 3 and out, 24 seconds off the clock. I mean, that was, didn't really do anything. I mean, San Francisco was using their timeouts and they had a 2-minute warning, so obviously that's why. But then San Francisco gets the ball back, but on the first play, Jimmy G gets sacked for 12 yards. But then they run a good play to Jeff Wilson. It's just like kind of a little like dump a couple yards down the field. He takes it. Look, he got like 20 yards on the play, 15, 20 yards. And that was a solid because, they were backed up all the way at their 3-yard line. And again, they just needed a field goal. So getting those yards was huge, especially with 1:15 left in the game. I believe they did still have a timeout left. But he gets punched out from behind. He fumbles. The Broncos recover. Game's over. So bad loss for the Niners because, like, to lose that game where you lose 11-10 and you had 2 turnovers on your last 2 drives where you potentially could have taken the lead in the game, that's really bad. 1-2 for San Francisco. Like I said, the NFC is still wide open. I think that they will be able to kind of get back on track with Jimmy G as quarterback. They did lose Trent Williams, though. He is out for at least a couple weeks, so that's not big. He's probably the best tackle in football, and it's your left tackle, obviously. So that's big news for them, obviously in a bad way. But yeah, I still have faith in them. But reaching a Super Bowl right now doesn't look great. But I think if everyone comes back healthy and Jimmy G looks a lot better, I think they're still one of the most talented teams. The defense is still one of the best defenses in the league. So I at least still have some faith in them, but right now it's obviously not as high as it was going into the season. For Denver, they're 2-1. I mean, you can't complain with being 2-1, but it's probably the ugliest 2-1 I've ever seen in my life, especially for the talent that's on this team. With Wilson, like I said, Wilson, Sutton, Jeudy, Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory, Pat Surtain, like so much talent on this team, and the fact they're 2-1 is crazy. But yeah, I think you have to be, Raiders are 0-3, Chargers are 1-2. You're technically tied with the Chiefs at 2-1 for this division. You have to be pretty happy. I mean, once the offense does get rolling, which it should. I mean, having Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett, and again those playmakers, like I said, it should get rolling at some point. You just hope it's next week, and next week they do play the Raiders, so that's gonna be a big game. If the Raiders win that one, that kind of leapfrogs them back into this kind of hunt, I guess you could say, because the Broncos would be 2-2, Raiders 1-3, but with a win over the Broncos. That game is in Vegas, so that's a big game right there. But if you're the Broncos, you need your offense to get going in that game. It needs to. You can't be putting up 11 points, 16 points, 15 points, and think you're going to win every game. It's just not possible. So that'll be a big game next week. We'll talk about it in the next episode. Next episode will be out in a couple days from when you see this. That'll be previewing week 4, giving my 5 picks. We'll recap the Thursday night game because that's for sure a game I do want to talk about. It's going to be a good game. So the Dolphins-Bengals game. But yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening, and yeah, I'll see you next episode.